What's up, guys? Mike Lewis here, and welcome to the Mike Lewis podcast. If you guys want to keep up with me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram at Mike Lewis Official, and you can follow me on Twitter at MikeLew52. It's where most of my updates come. If you're enjoying my content, give me a like and a subscribe. And without further ado, let's just dive right into this episode. Alright guys, welcome back to another episode, and please help me welcome my guest. You might recognize her from the Real World Portland. She did a couple challenges, formerly known as Jessica Mccain, now Jessica France. Had to throw that in there. Jessica, how are you doing?
I'm great.
How has this 2020 or now 2021 past year adjustment been for you? And a lot of craziness in the world. I know it couldn't have been too bad for you because you did get married.
I did. That was in itself honestly pretty crazy. Everyone's saying, what are you going to do? Are you going to have masks? Are you going to, cut your guest list? And all the craziness with that. It was intense. To be honest, we got married in the middle of nowhere. So we didn't have, all those restrictions and all the craziness. But I mean, this last COVID year has seemed to have dragged on for a while. It affected everything from our wedding to my husband's baseball career to straight up working conditions too for everyone.
When did you get married, month-wise?
Next month on the 6th, it'll be 6 months already.
Wow,
February 6th.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was actually at a wedding the other night, 2 nights ago, and for a moment, I just kind of looked around and I was just like, wow, this just doesn't even feel real like it's happening right now. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's really nuts.
It gives you a moment of normalcy, which almost feels taboo.
Yeah. How did you and your husband meet?
We tell everyone we met at a baseball game, to keep it simple.
Oh. How has that been, dating a professional athlete?
Honestly, it's the one thing I said I would never do. As many of the girls know who've done the challenge and, MTV, more often than not, a professional athlete's going to reach out to you and be like, hey girl, what's up? And I completely cleared my DMs of all of that nonsense, ran away from it, was absolutely not. I'm going to meet my husband, who is a minor league professional baseball player. And it's been amazing. It's been crazy. I've learned a lot about baseball, and I've moved quite a bit. So it's a little chaotic at times, but being able to be together and keep our little family together has been incredible.
Could you have ever seen yourself taking a liking to baseball prior to this?
I tell everybody, even whenever he talks to potential agents and stuff. I'm like, so how do you feel about baseball? I'm like, I hate it. They're like, what? You're a baseball player's wife. I'm like, whoever decided that baseball needed to be played in the dead ass middle of summer, we can't be friends because it's so hot all the time and there's so many games and he only plays every 5 days. So I don't know if anyone else out there is married to a pitcher or dating a pitcher or interested in a pitcher, but it's crazy intense, but it's fun.
So I'm gonna take a stab at this. Are you not a fan of the hot weather?
No, I don't.
Wow.
Hot weather. I really don't. But before, I kind of had an interest in baseball because my dad, he took me to my first baseball game. So I can't say I hate baseball completely. It was something for my dad and I to do together. But it's definitely brought my dad and my husband close together, too. They love, he finally has someone to talk to about baseball and, all that fun stuff. So it's cool. I don't absolutely hate it. It's just so hot all the time. And the games can run to 3-4 hours at the ballpark super late, have to get up early for work. So it's just crazy for a couple months at a time.
Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of the cold weather, and a lot of guests that I tell that to, they kind of look at me sideways like, are you serious? But, yeah.
I would hope so, living in Jersey. I mean...
4 seasons, so...
Yeah, but when it snows and it's cold, it is cold.
Oh, no, not a snow person. I'm just So obviously, I mean, from following the both of you, you and Brittany Baldy actually got pretty close. Was it the two, baseball players' relationships that kind of brought you guys together? I mean, I know you guys did a show together, but
Yeah, Britt and I did do a show together, and we remained friends after that. Um, we just kept in touch all these years, and then she just happened to date someone who is playing, minor league baseball, and now, recently with my husband moving up to AAA, we actually got to sit together while her boyfriend and my husband played against each other, which was really cool.
that's awesome. So it wasn't, it was just a coincidence then.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
oh, cool. Yeah, I want to transition now into kind of like your start, obviously, getting onto these aforementioned shows we talked about. Could you maybe walk me through what you were up to, like, prior to Real World? Like, what was life like for you then?
I was a student. I was actually going to UNC Pembroke. I was an Army ROTC. I was a Zeta at the campus. And I don't know, the opportunity came up, and so I took it. I went from college student to doing the Real World. I really didn't know what it was about when I applied. I was doing, a lot of promotional modeling, beverage modeling for, Bud Light. I mean, I was young. This was like almost 10 years ago now. I was 21, I was having the time of my life, and I wanted something new. And there was this ad, and it was talking about, getting out of your town and making friends or living with strangers. I was like, cool, I want to live with strangers. I don't know anybody who says that, and they must be 21 if they find that intriguing, because at 30, I'm like, that sounds horrible. Like, but so be it. I submitted an application, forgot about it. A few months later, they're like, hey, do you want to come to Charlotte? And I was like, sure, whatever. So I drove to Charlotte and answered a bunch of questions. And I was like, okay, well, that was fun. And then they just kept calling and more interviews. And I got flown out to LA, went to this hotel, which I thought was really sketchy at the time. I mean, like, what person in their right mind is just like, okay, I'm just going to fly to LA and go meet these people that I've never met before, I don't know, in the back of a hotel room. It was like the Zoo Motel at that, and tell them my whole life story. But I did. So that, I mean, good thing that I had like zero worries about anything, including my own safety, because it was just like, thinking back on how sketchy some of the things could have seemed, even though they were completely safe and everything was great, it just blows my mind that I just hopped on a plane. They, gave me a ticket, and I was like, sure, I'll come out there. It was, I don't know.
So did you go through, was it like an open casting call that you went to, or was it private interviews that they invited you to?
So I filled out the application online, and then they told me to come to a bar in Charlotte.
Oh, so how crowded was it, like, just...
There were a ton of people there, like, getting drunk and stuff. And I didn't wait very long, though, because I guess they had, like, I don't know, like, if you apply it online, maybe they had, like, a certain way to do it. But I don't remember waiting long. I didn't drink. I actually remember walking into the room, and there was, like, a U-shaped table, and then, whoever the casting producer is sitting there, and I just like walked in and just plopped down. I was like, hi, what's up? And she just was like, looked at me like, oh God, this lady is loud. And I don't know, I just answered everything completely honestly and openly, as embarrassing or silly it might have been or seemed, or how ridiculous some of the answers I had were. I just, I was just myself. I guess I didn't have enough life experience to know that maybe I shouldn't say some of the things that I said, or, I didn't have that fear of what other people thought.
Right. And I want to hear your perspective on this now, because, when you hear, like, Portland, you don't immediately think, like, oh, we're going to Vegas. Like, what was your reaction to finding out that you were going to be going to Portland?
I'm kind of glad you asked me that, because it was kind of cringy, but funny at the same time. Yeah. So we're doing interviews, and they're like, who is this person, holding up different cards, like asking me who Kanye is, and like who the president of the United States is, and things like that. And then they're like, so, Jessica. I'm like, yeah? Like what else could you possibly ask me? It was like a serious moment. And they're like, how would you feel if we said you were going to Portland. And I was like, what? I guess they expected me to be excited. I was like, what? And they're like, Portland, Oregon. I'm like, hold on. I feel like you just told me you were going to take me to Disneyland, and now we're going to the dollar store.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he was so silent. I was like, oh my God, they're not going to pick me now. Like, that split second of like word vomit just like shot out of my mouth. I was like, they're going to hate me. They're not going to pick me now. Why did you say that? Holy crap. Why did that come out of my mouth? And all of these thoughts were like rushing and like a second of that coming out of my mouth. And they're like, oh, well, have you ever been to Portland? I was like, no. And then they told me, well, you know, with your personality and your hobbies and interests, we figured you'd like it because, you know, there's mountains there, you can go snowboarding, dirt bike riding, and the food scene's really cool. And so I was like, oh, that does sound really cool. And so at first I was like really disappointed. I was hoping we were going to go somewhere crazy I'd never been before. But Portland was absolutely amazing. It was wild.
Did you like the nightlife there?
Yeah. I mean, I went to my first burlesque show there, and I guess they kind of thought, you know, taking the sheltered, young, innocent Christian girl to like a topless show was going to freak me out. But I was like, wow, they're naked. This is cool. And they're like, what? Like, I kind of feel in a lot of ways I didn't play into the character that they wanted or that they expected, or maybe they didn't expect or didn't know what to expect from me. But I mean, it was such an incredible experience, and I always credit who I am and how I discovered myself as a young 20-year-old, 21-year-old to that. It opened up my mind, it opened up my eyes, and it was one of the best times of my life, honestly.
I'm curious though, because I want to know like what was like the curfew like with you guys, because I know from like Jemmy's season in New Orleans, obviously you hear like New Orleans, you think like all right, because things don't really get popping there until 2 a.m. But apparently like from what they told me on the cast members of that season, like they had them on like a 12 a.m. curfew, which is kind of like, you know, unrealistic to think of like, you know, young teens, early 20-year-olds coming home at that time in New Orleans. Well, did they have you guys on like a set time that you needed to be home by?
I don't remember.
Oh.
I don't remember thinking back on it. I don't really remember a curfew because I remember being out at Splash Bar. Wow, I can't remember. Can't believe I remember the name of that place, but Splash Bar, we'd go all the time. And yeah. I don't remember, like, I mean, at some point the crew left us and then the fight broke out, but that's a whole nother story for, like, that's the whole iconic fight. That was the start of all of it. They actually weren't there with us when all of that broke out initially. But I don't remember them actually giving us a curfew or anything like that. We did have to call, like, pick up the phone and say, hey, can I go here? And it had to be a cleared location, you know, things like that. Or, like, whenever someone came over the house, they, like, made them sign paperwork. You know, all the, like, things.
How did that fight start that you just mentioned?
This is so cringy because, like, you don't want to place blame on anyone. It's been so long. Like, for instance, Avery, like, hated me, I think, for, like, the longest time. And then one time I went into a bar Louie at a hotel, like, across from the hotel I was staying at, and she hugged me. She's like, I'm so sorry that we were so awful to you. She's like, you're just so sweet. So, like, bringing this back up, I'm like, oh, shit. Naya and I were in the bathroom, and Avery told us that she overheard us talking about her, saying something about a shit-eating grin or something. It was so ridiculous that we all laugh about it now. But when you're young and drunk, and we weren't even talking about her, I don't remember what we were talking about, but she came out of the bathroom freaking out, and so Naya stood in front of the door and was like, wait, like, calm down. We were not, you know, and of course her and Naya didn't really get along at that point. So Naya standing in front of the door, we're all drunk. It just was a bad situation. So finally she moves from in front of the door. Avery runs out, and then Johnny runs up to me and starts calling me names, like calling me a fat
right. Yeah,
like all kinds of like crazy names. He started with the C word, calling Naya and I that from across the street, and finally he was like getting in my face and being like, you know, you fat bee, cry. Why don't you go put on some makeup? That's why your boyfriend broke up with you. And like, I was so tender. If you probably said that to me today, I'd probably get pissed and be like, get out of here. But I was a child. And I just remember sobbing my heart out, and he pushed me. And, like, none of that is on film. They didn't.
Like, physically push you?
Yeah, because he was, like, in my face.
Wow.
And he just, like, he didn't shove me down or anything. He just, like, kind of, like, went like that.
Oh,
because
wow.
Naya was there, got involved. It was just too much. He just went like this. But that pissed Naya off, and Naya came to my rescue immediately. She's like, get out of her face. Like, she stood up for me. And, like, for me, that was huge. And I don't think a lot of people get to see that. You know, the show really villainized Naya in a way that I don't really think was fair. I mean, did they fight afterwards? Sure. Was some of it inappropriate? Absolutely. A lot of things on that show are wildly inappropriate for a normal setting, but that's not a normal setting. So Johnny was, like, screaming at me, making me cry, and then I remember this. I've never met him again. I mean, he's this. I don't want to say. I want to paint a picture without being offensive. A larger set gay guy, and he comes up to me and he goes, oh, darling, come here. And I didn't know this man from Adam. I remember he had his cute little glasses on, and he just reached out with his big old arms and just scooped me up like in a mama hug. It was just like a soft, safe place, and he's just petting my head, telling me, it's going to be okay, and you know, you're all right. And I wish I knew that man's name, because he was the sweetest person ever, and I never felt, like, safe in that situation until Naya came to my rescue, and this random kind human being saw me hurting and was just like, I'll protect you. And that was probably my favorite moment on the show, like, because it showed humanity from people who, one, a stranger, and well, actually two strangers, because Naya and I were strangers at that point as well. But that's how the fight all started, just over a misconception, you know, and someone overhearing something and some booze. Like most silly fights do start, booze and a misunderstanding. And it just quickly spiraled into the chaotic nature that it was.
Yeah, I'm curious, and I think that's a good segue into what I was going to ask next. I was curious about a lot of those dynamics in the house, because it seemed like for the first half of the season, you were kind of on, like, the outskirts with, because it kind of seemed like Avery and Anastasia were cooped up together, and didn't really, you know, take a liking to you too much. And then, like, the second half of the season kind of seemed like then Avery and Johnny were just cooped up totally on their own. And then Naya was feuding with them and Jordan. And then, like, you were kind of like one of the outliers, I guess you could say. So, like, what really was the dynamic, do you feel like, when it comes to the ones that you feuded with?
It's really funny because I actually met Johnny first, and we rode in together on the train. And he was so nice to me the entire time. But as soon as we got in the house, he was super mean to me for no reason. And then, like, what else happened? They would just ask me personal questions that I wasn't as open as I am now. They would ask me questions, and I'd give, like, vague answers, or, I don't know, like, they would say mean things, and I kind of shrug it off, just, like, whatever. I'm very hard to upset. Takes a lot to ruffle my feathers in a way that I'm going to be nasty. It's hard to be mean. It really is hard to be mean. But I don't know, you know, I didn't have as much life experience as some of them. So a couple of them were a little bit older than me. So I think that had a lot to do with it as well. You know, just being in my hometown and, you know, not having as much life experience as them. I think they kind of felt like I was playing a role or they actually told me I was too nice. Or, you're too nice and we think you're fake. I'm like, well, I'm sorry that, you know, you think that I'm fake, but I can't be anything other than what I am. And you can be mean to me, I'm still going to be nice to you. That's just how this works. And so they thought I was fake. And I was, like, mind blown by that. I'm like, I'm the realest person in this house, and you're, like, accusing me of being fake because I'm nice? Like, it blew my mind. I just couldn't understand how nice comes off as fake. But whatever, not my problem. So I didn't make it my problem, you know, and I just did what I did, and everything that I did bothered them. And I still to this day have no idea why. But sometimes your angels disturb other people's demons, and honestly, you just have to love them more. And that's what I tried to do. I did call my mama. I was like, these people, they're trying my last ounce of Jesus. Like, what am I supposed to do? She's like, love them more. I'm like, okay. And I did. I removed myself from situations, and I attached myself to people who had my best interests at heart. Like, not.
Yeah.
I mean,
would you say that, like, coming off of your Real World season, like, there was a lot of, like, tension and hostility amongst you guys? Because I could point out, like, for example, like, the Real World Cancun cast with, like, Jasmine, John A., like, all those people, like, they had, like, a real, like, family bond that, like, sustained, like, after the show, whereas, like, you guys didn't really seem like too many people wanted anything to do with anybody. I mean, I know Johnny and Avery for a short minute were, like, dating off the show, but, like, aside of that, like, seemed like a lot of people, actually, come to think of it, I'm pretty sure Joy and Naya cooped up for a little bit post-show. But aside from that, it seemed like there was a lot of people just going the separate way from each other. Would you say that would be the case?
yeah, I mean, after the whole fight and, like, production making us sit down and choose sides and stuff, things got a little bit crazy. But I always stuck with Naya. They were mad because I wouldn't make a decision one way or the other. But, like, what is the country that doesn't pick sides? Isn't it like Switzerland or something like that?
Yeah.
I was, in this case, I thought the whole thing was wrong. The whole physical fighting at that point. I don't blame them. I probably would have thrown hands too if someone would have touched me or pissed me off like that too back then, if I was as knowledgeable or worldly as I am now. But yeah, everyone kind of split in different directions. Naya and I have actually remained very close. She was actually invited to my wedding as well, but due to the COVID scare with her job and everything, she wasn't allowed to travel. But Naya and I talk often. She calls and talks to my parents sometimes. My thing with Naya was she was completely different than me in every way. And I told her, I was like, you drink too much, you smoke, you got a vulgar mouth, and you make some questionable decisions, in my opinion. However, if you can be honest with me and you can be real with me, then we can be friends. But I'm not about to go break bread with you not having this conversation. I'll be real with you. I'll be honest with you, always. But that is what I require out of a friendship. So if you can reciprocate that, let's go get something to eat. And she's like, girl, I got you. And she hugged me. She's like, you're just so cute. The way she does whenever she thinks something is so adorable. It could be a puppy or like a grown human being. If she thinks it's cute, she gets this like childlike bubbliness to her. I love it so much. But yeah, Naya's my sister. She stood up for me, and she about burned the whole house down in my honor in a way. You know what I mean? She wasn't going to let anybody hurt me. And, you don't see those side conversations. You don't see her sitting with me while I'm crying and her telling me, I got you. No one's going to hurt you in this house. You're too sweet. You're too kind. She is just this incredible human being. And we're still friends. I talk to her just about every couple days.
And you both were doing the whole chef thing too, right? Like, I know she's a corporate chef, I believe. And then I think you were doing that for a while. Are you still doing that?
So I did work as a chef. I worked in Manhattan at 11 Madison Park. I actually started at Bethany after I graduated culinary school, but that was short-lived. They closed down. So I worked at 11 Madison Park for the majority of my New York career. We went to the Hamptons, but then when we went to Aspen, I stayed. That pop-up ended, and I stayed and worked out there. But when I met my husband, I had a choice. It was like, did I want to continue my career or did I want to travel with him? And I was miserable without him, and I've never felt that way in my life. Normally, I'm like, I'm independent. I'm this independent woman, and my dreams changed. I wanted to be this boss lady chef, and I was getting there, and I was working hard and learning so much, but God had other plans. So I cook at home. I like to post recipes for all the other, wags, wives, and girlfriends. That's what that's for. To just keep, I guess, sharing the love of food. But I do cook for my husband often.
Not a bad trade-off. Cook at home, get to travel with a professional athlete. Kind of a pretty good trade-off, in my opinion. What about post-show for you in particular? I know, like, after the quote-unquote 15 minutes, like, people try to, it seems like a lot of real-worlders try to dip their toes into the whole acting and modeling field. Did you try to, like, pursue anything like that post-show? Like, did any opportunities, come your way?
Not really. Not that I can think of. This was 9.5 years ago. Nothing that I can majorly think of. That wasn't really my focus. That's after the show. What did I do after the show?
Did they send you on any bar appearances? Was that, like, still a thing?
I did go to a couple club appearances. Like I did with Naya. I don't know where it was or where we were. I just remember we did one together. Life just went so fast. And so I did, I made appearances like that. I did some fundraiser work and things, of that nature. But that time just seems so blurred. I guess it seems so blurred because I did continue to do challenges and continue until I was like 25. So that was really my focus, just living life and having fun. I traveled a lot. It definitely sowed my wild oats by way of, experiencing new life, as far as cultures and traveling and learning new things and just going wherever the wind took me. But
yeah. And I thought it was kind of funny this past week. I think you posted a story of this. Jordan just followed you for the first time after 9 years, you said.
Jordan has hated me for so long, and I don't know why. I frustrate the shit out of him. And as I've gotten older, I kind of enjoy it a little bit more. It kind of cracks me up that I bother him so badly. We could just be in the same room. Like when I moved to LA, I saw him a couple of times and he was kind of nice to me, but not overly warm or anything like that. But I would just be there. For instance, on Free Agents, I was just sitting there and he just felt the need to pick on me. And I always thought it was if you like a girl, you kind of push her down on the playground kind of deal. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. Looking back on it, I would say definitely. But I don't know. He's been nice to me as of lately. I mean, come on, we've all grown up. We're all in our 30s now. But now it's kind of funny to me that he was so bothered by me. I was just such a meek little mouse. And I'm like, dude, why? What about me bothered him so bad? I'll probably ask him the next time I talk to him, if ever. But he did follow me on Instagram after 9 years. I guess that that disturbance has died down. He isn't bothered by me anymore, I guess.
Do you have any idea or clue as to why now of all times he chose to follow you? Was it random, or do you guys get tagged in the same thing or something like that?
I actually messaged him. He was talking about American Airlines being, I think it was American. Let me see. I want to be sure about this.
Yeah, you can't mess up that detail up,
I don't even know if I can find him. How do I do this? You would think that as a millennial, I would be good at this stuff, but every time Instagram changes something, I completely just lose my direction when it comes to operating. What's Jordan's last? Why? Okay.
Wisely.
Yeah. I had to think about that for a second. I don't know why it's gone. My Instagram keeps wanting to go to Facebook. Once I checked my inbox, it's weird. Let's see what it was. I know it had something to do with the airline. He was mad because his flight got canceled or something, and I knew about it, so I just told him that they laid off a ton of their pilots and they're canceling hundreds of flights. I think it was 80-something flights per day, because during COVID they laid off so many of their pilots, and then they got a new fleet and updated their programs and stuff. Well, once you do that, their vetted senior pilots have to go all the way back through the new training to operate the new systems. instead of taking, their annual, I guess, refresher courses or something of that nature. But long story short, I read a couple articles about it and talked to one of the flight attendants on one of my flights, and she's like, yeah, they laid off a bunch of people, and a lot of people took early retirement, and so now we're just short pilots. And so it was something simple as a knowledgeable comment, and he was just like, oh, I guess I don't hate you after 10 years, kind of deal.
Yeah, here and there I'll see fans on Twitter, they always like to use this like screen grab of you like hysterically laughing during the whole deliberation on free agents when LaToya popped off on him. You're like, you make like a face like this, you're like clapping like after like he got like completely roasted by her, and it's like hilarious.
He just, I don't know, like I could say anything. I could be like, oh, there's a beautiful blue sky out today, and he would be like, it's not blue, it is a reflection of the whatever the hell it's a reflection of, you know what I mean? He would just come out with some like way to tell me I was wrong or tell me I couldn't do something. And I think that fiery dynamic between the two of us made for good television, but it was extremely annoying because in our like down moments and our off camera moments, sometimes I wouldn't say he was nice. he was digestible, he was at this point I would have just probably been like, dude, what's your problem? But back then I was like, why doesn't he like me? Not like, hey girl, like me, but like, why was I such a problem for him? That bugged me so bad. And so it was just an interesting story, I guess.
Yeah. I was going back and watching too, and I like totally forgot about this. It was completely out of my mind. I was looking at the reunion for your guys' season, and I didn't even totally realize that Coral was actually hosting it, which was kind of crazy. What was it like meeting her and having her host your like season's reunion?
I didn't really know too much about the like past real world when I went on the show, so the only people I really know are the people I did shows with. And I didn't really know much about the past unless someone told me about it. I mean, I had an idea of who Coral was because of talk leading up to the reunion. But, I mean, she's tough. She's a boss, and she calls it like it is, and there's no bullshit. Like, when Johnny was mean to me the entire season, she literally looked at him and was like, no, tell me what your problem is with this girl. You're on the stage, and like, we're on the stage. She's like, tell me right now, like, what is your deal? I don't know if you recall that part. I just remember that, like, that's probably the only thing I remember about that reunion. But she was just hammering him, like, why? You don't like her because her mom sends her, letters? You don't like her because her mom, like, my mom had sent me a whole box of, like, my clothes I had back home that I forgot to pack. And he was like, your mommy is sending you gifts. I'm like, and? Like, why is this a problem? Like, I don't understand why my mother loving me is a problem for you. It's like stupid stuff like that people had issues with each other. But that was kind of a funny moment when Coral kind of lit him up about it.
Yeah, and so you obviously, I think that was what, you filmed the reunion after filming the challenge, if I'm correct?
I think so, yeah.
Your first challenge, that is. So you obviously, it wasn't that big of a gap at all, I think, from when you filmed your actual season of Real World to jumping into the challenge. Did you have any aspirations for going on to the challenge, or?
I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea. I probably should have watched a few of them before I agreed. I remember DM, everyone was talking about alliances. Alliance this, alliance that. I was like watching people. We were all sitting like kind of in a circle, like a semicircle, and everyone's talking. And like, here's DM, and I'm like this, kind of like tucked into her almost. I don't know her, but on the plane we got to know each other and found out that we had a lot of things in common. And she's like, "Oh, you're my little sunshine." That was her little, I was like her little bird. And so I was like kind of like tucked into her, like just scared. I had no idea what was going on. I was like, "Hey D," she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "What's an alliance?" And she giggled, her heartwarming giggle, and then she explained it to me. And the only reason I knew what was going on that season was because DM was like spoon feeding me all of the information I could possibly need to know about what the heck was going on.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I think coming into your season, like, it was obviously the first one you did was Rivals 2, right? Like, a lot of times, like, people are like, oh, why is this person rivaled up with that person? And, like, I was curious, too, at first because I figured the theme, I was like, oh, Avery and Naya have to be a shoo-in, right? And then, like, after rewatching your Real World season, I was like, well, actually, there was a little bit between you and Anastasia that passed as, like, being rivals, so to speak, obviously. You guys probably grew a little closer, I'd say, right? Like, or had more of an appreciation for one another after, kind of getting to know each other more off Rivals, or...
I don't really know, to be honest. I mean, she was not very nice to me. She kind of took on like this mean girl persona on the show, and that was really like at first we were friends, and then she decided to be a mean girl, and then like was really ugly. They would make ugly comments to me. Like we would show up at the same restaurants, and they would just be like, like it was so sad. And I think they didn't showcase enough of the mean girl mentality of what was going on between me and Anastasia to make it make sense to everyone else, but for us, it was genuinely made sense. And
Yeah.
I think I spent most of the show just trying to keep our politics together. I don't know how much you remember about the show, but she definitely wasn't, but, and I think, what was that? That was Thailand.
Thailand,
And then
yeah.
Night, God rest his soul, was giving me a hard time, picking on me. I was the new kid. What else? I actually stood up in the middle. We were all sleeping in the main part of the art gallery building because it was so hot. People were getting sick from the heat. And Night had just been on me, just like picking on me and starting rumors about me and just being typical Night. And I stood up, and I was so embarrassed that I did this because I was like wearing like the grungiest pajamas with my big old rimmed glasses and my retainers in, and my hair was on top of my head, no makeup on. I was like, listen here, mother. And I was mad. I was so mad. And I'm like just going off, losing my mind in front of all of these people. And like no one said anything. He just like made a joke, and then like it was so silent. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Thank God that they didn't get any of that on camera. Or maybe they did, just didn't show it. But that my first season was so crazy.
No, and I always thought, like, from all your seasons, though, like, you definitely had, like, a positive attitude, right? Like, I know, like, for most of your seasons, like, you were partnered up with somebody, like, you always, like, were thinking about, like, what was best for you guys, like, as a team, Like, you always tried to keep the unity together, whether it be... I really admired, like, how you kind of stood up for Anastasia after your elimination, because I think TJ made a comment, which, I mean,
Yeah.
TJ... great guy, like I have nothing bad to say about him, but he did kind of like make like a snarky comment about her or whatever, like after that elimination, and I like that you kind of responded to him and were like, well, at least she tried, she gave it her best, she didn't quit. Like I like that, you know what I mean? You were trying to keep the partnership together with Johnny on your last season, and then obviously when you were partnered up with Dustin too, even you were talking him up while he was going through his little I don't even know what phase he was going through, but like on
I
that.
don't either. And that specific, we had a whole conversation before we did that, like he said, she said interview. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
I know what you're talking about.
And he's like, look, just, we're not going to do this, You know how Dustin, that's my impression of Dustin. We were friends in New York too. Like he came over to my apartment a couple times to hang out, just like completely platonic, friendship. I absolutely adored Dustin. However, it's only being lied to, and he was like, we're just gonna play it cool, we're just gonna like be honest about what happened, and like nothing really happened. But I'm like, I know what happened, I was there. And so I was being so nice about it. I could have like drug him, and he instead just like drug me through the dirt and was like making up all this stuff, like she wanted me or whatever he said. I was so angry, and I don't even know what I was thinking. I don't remember if I grabbed him or pushed him. I remember later he was like, just that like stupid way he used to call my name to get my attention when he knew he had messed up. And I said, Dustin, if you say my name one more time, I don't even know if they show this, I can't remember, but I had a glass of water in my hand. I said, if you say my name one more time, I will throw this in your face. And he did, and I did. And I was like, oh, it was just
Wow. So that like so that interview with you two, like the he said she said thing, that was like completely like uncut, like how you were reacting. Like I think because you got mad or whatever, and you were like, "Oh, you're gonna play this like I'm the man card." Like that was
Yeah.
completely like legit.
Oh, completely legit. So much so that production was worried about their equipment because I was like, he was. I think I was chasing him or he was walking backwards or something, but we were attached to microphones and other, equipment was on the ground and I didn't care. I was like, I was going to get him. I was going to push him or say something or get him out of my face. I didn't care. I was really mad. Now, sadly, that's what I look like when I'm really mad. It's still kind of cute and cuddly, but that was me being angry. It's still annoying all these years later. I'm like, really? Really? But
And like on your, I want to kind of piggyback off of that now, since obviously your last season though, like you were with Johnny, and I think a lot of people could agree, like they didn't really like the way like he was treating you on that season, like because I figured at least like you're at that point what maybe 2, 3, 2.5 years removed from your guys' real world season. I figured like at least he would have like somewhat of time had passed, have somewhat of a positive outlook on things, try to make the best of the situation. But he just had like such a like piss poor attitude on that season. I didn't know what it was. Why do you feel like that was? Like did he really dislike you that much, or was he like putting on for the camera? Do you feel?
oh no, he was mean the entire time. Like I went to their room to talk to him at one point. I was like, "Hey, like what is going on?" And he just picked on me and like made fun of me, and the guys were laughing at me and just saying like, I don't know, trying to make me feel real small. I was like, "You know what? Screw this. I'm out. Like I'm leaving. I was trying to have an adult conversation with you, but obviously you don't have the capacity to handle it, so I'm going to leave." And that's it. And there's several times I tried to talk to him, and they showed it. And he was half-heartedly accepting of it, but he never like leaned into the camaraderie of, I may not like you, but I like to win. That's where I was. I don't like you, but I love to win. So I can get past whatever, junk you have with me to win, but he couldn't do that. So
Do you think maybe like he already just like mentally like checked out at that point from like doing the shows, or like was it just because he was with you?
probably just me. Absolutely, I think it was me. And again, you could ask Jordan or Johnny or any of them what I ever did to make them not like me, and they're like, "She's annoying. She's nice." Like, so what I'm hearing is she's 21 and she talks too much. And now I'm 30 and I talk too much, so I just really don't care. So I never really got a solid reason or explanation as to why they felt the way they did.
Was Rivals 3 like a really bad experience then, or?
It was short-lived, so it wasn't too terrible. But, I mean, I gave it my all, and I just feel like he didn't care. And so that made it really tough because I was in great shape. I was ready. I was terrified of most of the heights that all heights, really.
A lot of heights challenges on Rivals 3.
I don't do heights. But I still gave it my all, and I just feel like he didn't care.
Do you think he would have stole the money from you guys had you guys won? Like how it did for
absolutely.
Wow.
I probably would have too, though.
Really? No.
Well, against him, everything that he put me through, I don't know. I probably would have like taken it and like given like half to like Avery and Naya or something just to be extra spiteful. I don't know.
I think you're giving yourself way too much credit. You're a pretty nice person.
It's just so hard to be mean. I don't understand how people are mean.
Where would that rank, like, on your, obviously shows that you did? Like, I guess you include Real World in it, too. Like, what would be, like, your least favorite and favorite out of all the challenges in Real World that you did, from experience perspective?
I think Free Agents is probably my favorite.
Well, that was probably your best, showing.
Yeah. I mean, I got to work with a lot of amazing people who were actually incredible partners. Like, again, I hate heights. I'm not a heights person. I'm terrified. But doing one of the heights with Johnny Bananas He was super encouraging. I love Johnny. The few moments that Johnny and I have had to like form a small friendship, he's goofy and silly. He puts on for the camera for sure, but he's very likable. Like as a real person, he's very likable, and he was just so incredible with me. Like I was terrified. I mean, when he was standing behind me and I was standing towards the wall, and we had to put those bars through.
Mm-hmm.
I was like losing it. I was about to cry, and he's like, "It's okay, Jess." He's like, "Hey, you got this, okay? You're good. We're moving. Just don't look down. Don't look down, okay?" And I didn't, and everything turned out great. So that was a really like heartwarming moment for me to not have a partner that like hated my guts, or that I had to worry about, drinking too much, or I didn't have to be the mom. It was like, it was cool. And working with Leroy was super duper cool. He's super funny, as most people know, but I might be small, but I'm pretty fast in short distances. So when he like slammed the car slammed the brakes of the car on, he goes, "Damn." He goes, "She was out the car and down the road before I could even take my seatbelt off." And I just remember cracking up laughing about that. It was just so funny. And then when we had to move the joystick, only it was like backwards. So you had to like, it was so funny. He's like, we were going, I was like, "I can't figure it out. I can't." He's like, "Move it with your butt." And so, of course, I start laughing, and I'm like squiggling like this back and forth. And I just thinking back on those memories, some of these things were so much fun and just crazy. Like you look back and you're like, "Wow, I did that." Like that's nuts.
Yeah, you had an experience that like a lot of people will possibly never experience, and you did it well 4 times challenge wise, and then like you had a real world experience as well, which still not many people will do. Yeah, you were like a legit mainstay for a while, so like that's kind of gonna pose my next question. Like, why did you step away? Like I'm sure you had to have at least gotten like one or two, at least a few, maybe even more calls to do more. What made you step away?
I've gotten a few calls, but I just don't love heights. And the older I get, the more settled I had become. Becoming a chef and having that career really dictated why I couldn't go back, because I couldn't just stop my job in real life, go play this fantasy game, and then come back and step right back into my career. I was so focused at what I was doing. I worked at the #1 restaurant in the world. I was one of the very few females, and I was very prideful in that. And I worked very hard for that. And my career just progressed, and I didn't have any leeway or any break time in between. I knew I wasn't going to make TV my career. And then after meeting my husband, I still got a call back for the challenge. And I was just like, I'm 30. Or I think I was like 28 or 29 at the time. But, I'm 30 now. Not that you can't be competitive at 30, but I want to have a child. My husband and I are trying to get pregnant. We got married. We just had so much going on that it wasn't worth disturbing the life I have now for a little bit of TV time and, a couple G's.
Yeah.
And I'm scared of heights, man. It's like the older I get, the more I get worried about things. I'm like, what if I get hurt? What if I have to go to the hospital? Hospital bills are expensive. And it just like, that's the way my mind works. It's like, I'm just going to go on a show and get hurt and spend all of my money on being hurt. It's just like the logic of it. Just as you get older, I've lost that that fearless nature of logic.
Wow, so you were called after you got married, you said? So that had to have been fairly recently. How recent would you?
I guess not after I got married. I guess after I met him. So I say after I met my husband. So he was my boyfriend still at the time.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna assume that you don't really follow or keep up with the show anymore that much. Okay. Well,
what's the last one out? What's out right now?
I don't think there is one out right at this very moment, but they've got a few, which that'll lead into a next point as well, because they've got like 2 challenges right now. there's the one that obviously like you're used to that you've been on, but they like started like this new spin-off one called Challenge All Stars that's like exclusively on Paramount Plus, which is like they're pulling like people who haven't been on the shows in a while.
Oh, yeah, I got called for that one.
Did okay.
I did. I said no.
Really?
That was a while ago, though. I feel like my timeline is warping, but
Oh, wow. So that was a no then, like a flat out no for you. Interesting.
I'm babies. I want to get pregnant, and the more I spend time away from my husband, the lower our possibility of that is. I wouldn't. I've never watched All Stars, so maybe I should watch it. Maybe if it doesn't include too many crazy heights, like maybe I'll think about it.
Yeah.
It's just the heights thing for me that really, really, really keeps me away from it.
Mhm.
I mean, your body breaks a little different from 21 to 30. I'm just saying, like, just the thought of like being away from my husband for that long. And I know things evolve and change, but we were only allowed like 1 or 2 minute phone calls, 1 2-minute phone call a week sometimes. And then, with the reception being horrible, I wasn't allowed to call home to my family. And so now thinking about it, like my husband's working on his dream, his career, and his dream of being a major leaguer, and how much support I give to him. Being away from him for long periods of time without being able to talk or FaceTime or help him handle his business, it's just very detrimental to where we're at in our life. But you never know. We'll see. So I'm still open to the possibility, which I haven't said publicly before. But
well, here we are. You just did. The main challenge show, not All Stars, like the one that's like on MTV. It's like almost unrecognizable now. I mean, I don't know if you've heard or not, but like the way they're like casting now, it's like Real World, which I'll get into this point too. Real World and Road Rules. The traditional Real World and Road Rules that is like extinct, obviously. So like they're pulling people from like Big Brother and like Survivor. When you hear this, I don't know if you know this or not. The past challenge season, they actually pulled an America's Got Talent singer and a WWE wrestler. So the times are changing.
yeah, I've seen that.
Do you have any opinion on that? Maybe as Jessica, the viewer, on that kind of current casting climate?
I think it's strange.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call it normal. It's definitely getting away from its roots a little bit. It's been met with a little bit of contention, I'll say that, by some fans. It hasn't been like a clear cut, like, oh, we love this, so. Yeah. There's also another show, though, too, in addition to Challenge All Stars that they started called Real World Homecoming. That's also on Paramount Plus.
I saw something about that. That's neat. That's super cool.
What about that one? If they try to revisit Portland, what do you think?
Definitely go. I would definitely go. That would be so much fun. It would have to be in the off season when my husband's not playing ball. But I would 1,000%, if they wanted to do a homecoming, I would go back. I couldn't think of a better way to do an MTV show than to connect with Naya and Avery again. And, hopefully Anastasia, I haven't heard from her in years, but it would be so cool, and to link back up with Jordan and just see where we're all at now, because we've all grown and changed. And I think Johnny someone told me he got married and had a kid, which is super cool. We're all in different points in our lives. It'd be kind of neat to revisit that.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see you all on like the same page. But yeah, I'm glad that we got to chat today. It was really fun kind of walking down memory lane for a little bit. And I hope you had fun too.
Yeah, it was cool.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
You too.